unpacking the Nairobi and Mombasa building disasters and why it might happen again. Two major cities, two devastating collapses. In just weeks, Nairobi and Mombasa witnessed the fall of buildings that should have stood strong. Lives were lost, families were shattered, and trust in the safety of our built environment took yet another blow. But this isn't just about what happened, it's about what keeps happening with impunity, and someone seems not to be listening. The same mistakes are made over and over, and each time we act surprised, forgetting the warnings that came before. In this video, we unpack the failures that led to these disasters, compare similar strategies around the globe, and ask, could it happen again? And more importantly, how do we make sure it doesn't? How can we break this cycle of tragedy, outrage, and inaction? Nairobi, Mathare area collapse. In March 2024, a 5-story residential building collapsed in the Mathare area of Nairobi. Built in a densely populated informal settlement, the building crumbled suddenly at dawn. Emergency responders rushed to rescue the survivors, with multiple casualties and extensive structural failure reported. Initial investigations suggested substandard materials, poor workmanship, and a complete lack of quality control during construction. Prior, resident complaints about cracks. Tenants had expressed concern about growing cracks in the structure, walls were separating, floor slabs sagging. Videos shared online showed clear warning signs, yet nothing was done. Calls to landlords and community officials were ignored or brushed off. Despite this, neither the landlord nor local authorities enforced a full inspection or evacuation. Residents were left to live in fear. Delay in evacuation. Some local officials had reportedly conducted a brief inspection, but no mandatory evacuation was ordered. Tenants continued living in the structure, some out of fear of losing shelter, others unaware of the imminent risk. This delay likely led to the higher number of casualties. A life-saving decision was delayed until it was too late. Institutional interventions. NCA launched an audit post-collapse, blaming poor enforcement of approvals. However, critics noted this was reactionary, not proactive. IEK condemned the incident and called for stricter peer reviews of structural designs. EBK vowed disciplinary action against involved professionals if found negligent, but the public demanded more transparency. Borax emphasized the importance of site supervision and called for systemic reforms. AAK called for sweeping review of zoning regulations in informal settlements and increased responsibility among urban planners. Mombasa, Mwembe Tayari collapse. In early April 2024, a building under construction in Mwembe Tayari, Mombasa, came crashing down. It was reported that construction had resumed illegally after being stopped due to safety concerns. The collapse left several injured, with fears of fatalities as bodies were pulled from the rubble. The tragedy once again revealed glaring gaps in oversight and accountability. Ignored warning signs. Cracks and misalignments were reported by nearby residents and construction workers. A previous stop order had been issued by the Mombasa County Planning Department, but construction quietly resumed after bribery was alleged. Whistleblowers were ignored, regulations were bypassed, and the price was paid in blood. Response timeline. Authorities responded only after the collapse. No official had visited the site recently. Once disaster struck, NCA and public works officials launched an investigation while EBK requested a full professional audit. Families mourned as experts debated causes. Institutional interventions. County government ordered demolition of other unsafe structures nearby, but only after public outcry. IEK and EBK recommended prosecution of negligent professionals and proposed reforms to prevent recurrence. NC acknowledged gaps in monitoring on the ground, construction activity, and hinted at upcoming reforms. Global parallels and engineering insights. Now, these are the global comparisons. Rana Plaza, Bangladesh in 2013, a commercial building with visible cracks collapsed after owners ignored evacuation orders. 1,100 plus deaths were recorded. Oversight was minimal and no accountability was enforced until the damage was irreversible. Another incident recorded was Surfside, Miami, USA in 2021. A beachfront condo collapsed due to long-term corrosion of steel reinforcements and ignored maintenance reports. 98 lives were lost. Previous engineering reports had highlighted the risk years earlier. Then in Turkey, earthquake 2023, thousands of buildings fell, many due to poor construction and relaxed building codes enforcement. Despite seismic activity being a known risk, enforcement remained a low priority. Now, what are the key insights from these global parallel disasters? These disasters all have one thing in common. Warnings were ignored, codes weren't enforced, and oversight came too late, with impunity and too often silence from those responsible. The script doesn't change, only the victims do, and unless enforcement becomes non-negotiable, history will continue to repeat itself. Now, what are the expert analyses? What the code of practice and the laws say? Now, local and global regulations. We do have the Kenyan Building Code that was just passed last year, 2024, which sets structural safety and material quality standards. But enforcement at county level remains weak and underfunded. Paper policies without practical follow-through cannot protect lives. Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Kenyan law, Occupational Health and Safety Act, Kenya, grants rights to workers to report unsafe sites, yet many fear retaliation or have no access to formal complaint channels. International Building Code, majorly used in the USA, and Eurocode, used in the European Union. These are international standards that demand tiered inspections, independent design verification, and legal liability for compliance. Enforcement is typically carried out by empowered independent bodies. Now, what are the best practices globally? Third-party structural reviews before slab casting. QR-coded site approvals visible to the public. Whistleblower protection for construction workers. Public dashboards for real-time permit tracking. Mandatory annual audit of buildings older than 10 years. What are the key takeaways? Regulations are only effective when matched by active, consistent, and non-negotiable enforcement. Otherwise, they're just well-written pages in a binder, useless in the face of corruption or indifference. My closing remarks and call to action. Please make enforcement a priority. Kenya doesn't suffer from a lack of engineers. It does suffer from poor codes. It also does suffer from lack of consistent enforcement. And this applies to other places in Africa, in Europe, and globally. When oversight is relaxed and when consequences are rare, tragedies are inevitable, and that silence enables repeat disasters. We must build a culture of accountability from the ground up. We must have uncompromising audit systems. We must have strict penalties for non-compliance. We must have transparent approval processes. we must empower oversight bodies with funding and independence. And also we must have public reporting tools for citizen involvement. This is not just an engineering issue, it's a public safety emergency. Please share this video, speak out when you see red flags, demand enforcement. Because safe buildings are a right, not a luxury. And no one should die because someone looked the other way. Thank you, and please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.